Hey guys, Stephen here from the School Observatory in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. So in this video today, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up my Star Adventurer mount and let you guys get a good look at the insides of it and understand the inner workings. So there's a couple reasons I'm actually putting together this video. The one reason is, well, recently I just bought this mount. This is actually my second Star Adventurer mount I've bought. And there's a problem that seems to be coming up on the local Star Adventure Facebook page. And that is people are getting these mounts and they find that when they loosen off their clutch here and rotate the mount, they're finding that the clutch, or the mount I should say, is locking up in one point. So this mount being rather new, I got it last week and sure enough I had that same issue. So me being me, instead of sending it back and getting a new one, I opened it up to see what was causing this issue. And to my surprise, I found out that they were running these screws, not these ones, the ones underneath, into the mount, and they weren't lining up the holes first. They relied on the screw rotating to actually push around and actually find the hole itself and run it into the mount. So this was causing metal shavings to actually be chewed up inside the mount, and those shavings were actually getting caught up inside the clutch and the right Ascension gear. So when I pulled it apart, I had metal shavings fall out. I cleaned them up, I seen the damage, I put it back together, and now it seems rather smooth. It still gets tight in one point, and it's not to the point where it's going to affect my tracking or it's going to affect the actual balancing. It's just the fact that the clutch needs to be worn in to that right Ascension plate. So I'm going to take it apart and I'm going to show you guys where this issue is and how to clean it out and put it back together. We're going to go ahead and also open up the bottom part of the mount, and we're going to get a good look at the electric motor in here and the gears that drive it. I want you guys to see how actually tiny this little motor is. I see people constantly overweighing the mount and adding extra counterweights, and they're pushing the mount to the limit. They're pushing the mount beyond the limit. And sure, it can do it, granted, but you're putting a lot of strain on that little electric motor, and you will actually eventually burn up that electric motor. So if you find you need to actually have extra counterweights or anything like that, then maybe it's time to consider upgrading to an actual equatorial mount instead of one of these, which is essentially just a star tracker. So let's go ahead and open this up. We're going to start by looking at the whole issue we had with the rotation actually locking up. So first we're going to need a number 3 Allen key, and we're going to take off these 4 screws to remove the saddle. So I'm just going to use a drill to speed up the process here though. Alright, so there we go. The saddle is off. And now we can actually look in there and you'll see another 4 screws. These are the screws that were actually causing the metal shavings. So now we're just going to actually loosen off our clutch until it actually threads right off. So underneath here you see a pressure plate. That's this silver ring here. It's actually stuck to it with the grease. And then we got a roller bearing here. This is just to allow us to actually still rotate the clutch in order to lock the mount in. Now we always want to keep the surface matched up with the pressure plate just to keep the wear marks all consistent. So I'm going to take this off here. And I'm just going to ensure I put this face down onto there. There we go. And then on here we got another pressure plate, or pressure ring as you'd call it. It's really stuck to our main right Ascension gear using this grease, so we're just going to go ahead and leave it on. Alright, so now I'm going to put in 2 of my screws, just lightly, a few threads. And this is going to give me a grip, and it's going to allow me to actually hold the mount still while I try to crack these 4 screws loose. Piece of hair. Alright, so now we're going to need our 2.5 millimeter Allen key. And so you're going to find when you try to crack it loose that the whole mount is going to want to rotate. So we just put in our screwdriver across the screws and it allows us to crack them loose. Let's crack this one loose. Going the wrong way here. There we go. There. Alright, so we're going to thread out these 4 screws. Alright, so there they go. They're all out. I'm just going to give them a little dump. There's our 4 screws. So now this whole right ascension gear is loose with the clutch, and we can pull it out. So this silver piece here, this is our main right ascension gear, and it's the clutch backing plate. This piece here is the actual clutch. You'll see here when I pull it out. So you just want to pull it straight out, give it a little bit of a wiggle. It will go. Come on. Thought it first got. Come on. Okay, now it's being tight. There we go. Just gotta wiggle it because these teeth are actually on what's down here inside that brass piece. That is our worm gear in there. That is the main drive that will actually drive our right ascension ring. So as you can see here, I'm just going to set this to the side for now. Hopefully you guys can see this. We got our 4 thread holes that we put those screws in. Well, took them out. And as you can see, all this chewed up marking here, and there's even some over here. This is actually what caused all the metal shavings to fall off. So these metal shavings that came off of here, put this to the side, they actually ended up inside this piece. That might be too much light now. So this is our clutch. This is our right ascension gear. These are actually 2 pieces here. So I'm just going to go ahead and give it a little bit of a push, and they slide apart. So this is the backing plate, and this is our clutch pad here. This clutch pad will essentially push into that plate, and it locks everything together, and it allows our main worm drive to actually rotate everything together. So in here is where I found all those metal shavings, and this is where I had to clean it up. So try not to get any grease on this pad. As you can see, it's a little bit oily. This is actually straight from factory too. But this is the pad that we need to actually wear down into this backing plate. So all I'm going to do is take a rag, and I'm going to clean up the grease off the edge as well. We don't really need that grease there on this edge. And I strongly suggest using a rag, not paper towel, otherwise you're going to get little flakes and fibers all through this thing. So just clean this off. I'll set that to the side. And grab our right ascension gear. And we're going to clean off the inside of this gear as well. As you can see, that stuff is all gunked up, and that's what's causing our stuff to actually kind of lock up. And yeah, like I said, there was actual metal filings in there that were chewed up off of the mount itself. So just give this a good cleaning, make sure she's clean and grease free. Just keep using a clean part. Get that out of there the best I can. Sorry, I'm trailing off the camera there. That's starting to look pretty good. The only spot we really need grease is along these gears on here for the worm drive to actually drive our right Ascension. So there we go. She looks rather clean. So I'm just going to go ahead and set this onto my clutch. So if you can grab this, it should be able to spin nice and freely, like so. Set that to the side. And if you want to check, as we rotate our polar scope, these are where the main bearings are for our right Ascension. The main bearing is actually underneath this backing plate, and there's another one in here. So go ahead, rotate that, and you'll notice that it rotates nice and smooth. So this is obviously not the cause of it locking up. The whole cause is actually in this gear here. Everything seems good. So that's essentially it to the whole sticking issue. It's all cleaned up, and then you just pretty much reassemble. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to open up the bottom now and take a look inside there. I'm going to have to use an Allen key for that one screw because my bit can't get in there. So if you are doing this, do not take out these two screws. You'll actually drop a couple nuts inside the mount, and then you're going to have a little jigsaw puzzle to try to figure out on how to get them out of there. There we go. So now this little Allen key set screw here, this is here to adjust our backlash. And I'll be honest, I'm a little bit disappointed in what I saw when I took this apart. So we're just going to lift up our plate, and you're going to give it a full twist as you take it off to loosen off the wires. So there we go, we're wide open. If you look in here, there's a little set screw. This is for our backlash adjusting. And yeah, this set screw is just a little ball bearing in the end of the set screw. And all it does is pushes into our main worm drive into the right Ascension. So it takes that slack out of the gears. Now I said I'm a little bit disappointed in it. I was actually expecting to see a cradle that actually moved the whole gear mechanism up and down into our right Ascension gear. And no, it's just a little bearing that's actually pushing onto this and causing pressure on it. So I was, yeah, not really impressed with that. I can't see how that makes any difference. And if anything, it looks like it may actually cause damage to our main worm drive. So right here to here is the electric motor. Let's see if I can get a close-up for you guys here. Just bear with me. Let me do some manual focus. There we go. So yeah, this is just the motor. This is a gearbox. That gearbox, in turn, is going to rotate this gear, and then it's going to hit to this gear, changing directions to this one, and then to here. So all this tension that we're putting onto our mount when we're adding extra weight in that, it is all affecting this little tiny electric motor. This is all that actually drives our mount. So this is why we have a 12-pound weight limit to the mount. Inside you can see the polar scope. The polar scope runs on a bearing that runs inside there, and then yeah, the other one inside the front. This is very difficult. That's just pressure fitted into the actual casing itself. So this is also where all the weight is relied on, is these two little bearings that are inside there. So the bearings have a weight limit too. Bear with me here. So inside here, see if I can get you guys to see this. there's actually a little screw in the polar scope itself. Don't take this out. All this is it's holding a collar that's inside the polar scope, and it allows our reticle, which is the image inside the polar scope. It's like a little glass disc with a metal ring around it. It actually will slide and fall all the way through if we did not have this collar. So if you take this screw out, that whole collar is going to come loose. It's going to slide back and forth in there. And again, you're going to end up with another jigsaw puzzle trying to get that hole to line up with the outer casing again. And those two screws on the back that I said, they're actually here and one underneath the wire here. So you'll end up dropping these nuts down in the mount if you were to take those two screws out. So just leave the screws in. It's just holding our main computer chip in there. On the back of the motor, you'll see it's got a counter. This is just so the mount can know how far the motor has ran and be able to rotate it back. This is all for the settings and the rotation amount. So yeah, that's essentially all there is to it. I don't want to take this apart too far, but now you guys have a good look on the inside. You see our main gear setup, our main worm drive, the little motor, and how everything works. These two screws on the front that are obviously out of focus again, those are what's holding the whole gear assembly on here. They have so much Loctite in it, I can't get them to crack free. And they're obviously there and Loctited in for a reason, so I'm not going to take them out. But if you were to pull those out, this whole gear assembly and the motor would lift off of here. So yeah, that's about it. There's really not much to it. It's just a little tiny electric motor with a hell of a lot of gears to be able to drive 12 pounds worth of weight limit. So now let's reassemble this. Go back up. Alright, so I'm just going to take my clutch and my right Ascension gear with the clutch backing plate in there. And we're going to put this in first so you can kind of see how this whole drive system works. Alright, so we got our clutch, backing plate. We're just going to wiggle it and it should slide in. Come on. There we go. So when we tighten down our clutch itself, what it's doing is it's pulling that pad into this right Ascension gear and it's pinching onto it. And then now that whole pad that we're rotating here is going to actually lock up with that gear, allowing the gear main worm drive to actually drive it. So I can go ahead, rotate it. Seems nice and smooth to me. That's about it. So let's throw this back together now. Again, one full rotation. This just twists up the wires to get them nice and neat out of the way. And put the cap back on. Butterfingers, they're all covered with grease now. So I'm going to reassemble using the actual Allen keys. I don't want to do this with a drill because you chance actually cross-threading your screws in there. So you just put all 4 screws in snug. This is actually rather difficult to try to do and let you guys see at the same time. Okay, so I got all 4 screws snug, and now we want to do the final torque. So you do one screw at a time. Torque it down, and you do it in a crisscross formation too. I'm just going to lose this light. There we go. Three and four. All right, so that's all torqued down. Now we need to do the four inside here. So again, this is where factory screwed up. They just ran that screw into that hole, and as you can see, the hole isn't lined up with the actual threads on the other side. So what they need to do is actually rotate it until you see the hole. And it gets rather difficult because it's trying to rotate the mount at the same time. So I'm just going to hold the polar scope from the back. And almost there. There we go. Now my holes are lined up with the threaded hole. Get in there, you. And same deal, just put all four in, just slightly snug, not tight yet. And then we're going to do the final torque down. So I'm going to put my pick in between those two main screws to hold them out still, and then torque it down. And again, crisscross formation. Get in there, you. All right, so we can take these out. Make sure we can hold them in there. We can actually check, see if she's tightening up again. Still has that tight spot, but like I said, you got to wear that clutch pad in there. But there is no more grinding left. That was my main issue when I first got this mount, is I could actually hear grinding inside there. And then as long as my bearings are lining up the same faces that it came apart, thread my clutch back in, done deal, and put on the saddle. Make sure you line up your holes first, obviously. So I'm just going to go ahead and start all four of these screws. Use my drill to zip them in just to speed up our process here. And do our final torque. there, that is about it. Now the only thing left to do is throw some batteries back into it and yeah, make sure it still works. So yeah, that is one thing I forgot to mention. Always pull your batteries out first. But the clutch is loose, got a nice rotation going on. Like I said, there's still a little bit of a tight spot, but you just gotta wear that clutch pad into that plate and she will be good to go. So hopefully this helps you guys out. Hopefully we're not all finding metal shavings inside our mount and it's just a couple people. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching.